One of the parts of this project that influenced me personally as an architect the most was just the relationship I was able to establish with the client. Like Tembe and Matsidiso have just been amazing through the whole process. It stands as an example that like no matter what sort of adversity and uncertainty you're facing, things are still achievable and realizable. There were many points in this project, like more than one, where we thought like this is not going to go ahead, it might be the end of our journey together, and that wasn't it.
The Kambule residence for Tembe and Matsidiso Kambule in Johannesburg South in the Meyersdale Eco Estate.
You know, the inspiration behind the design in getting to know them and their living needs first, because like, you know, it's a famous architectural quote, but it's always ingrained in me is like, the house is a machine for living.
The concept of this residence is deeply rooted in the Zulu traditional culture and the priority that the elders would place on a tree when they had established a new place of living. The area underneath that tree would become somewhat of a court and where they communicated with the rest of the tribe, and it was also a place where they would engage with outsiders and people not from the tribe. This initial concept was actually established on a site that had nothing on it, but we did a geotechnical report that gave us some pretty bad results, and so at which point in time they decided to abandon that property, and Tembe came in and had the vision to see an existing property for the potential that it had.
Before, this was a Tuscan style architecture, which was really nice, but it had a very monolithic roof and the orientation wasn't really taken too much into consideration right in the beginning. So the house was very cold and it was very dark. And so standing in here, yeah, sure, there's a few lights around, but you know, bar the lights off, all the skylights and the natural lights, windows that we brought into it from the redesign just basically brightens up the space a lot. It's just like light is warmth. It kind of all around creates a better ambiance for the house. Any architect or any designer really wants to get to know their clients. Oftentimes a tricky little style match between an architect and a client. With Tembe and I, we have like a similar taste. It worked well. Right at the beginning of the project, Matsidiso struggled to read plans. So I'd present plans to her and she was like, cool, I get what you're saying, but like I just don't understand what I'm looking at. And so I used our modeling software where I had the 3D model in full and I pulled it down to where the program cuts for a plan. The minute I did that, her eyes lit up and she was like, wow, I can see what you're talking about. So it's like creating that understanding of the relation of space. And so yeah, I think that all around that aspect of the relationship with the client was definitely the most dear to me of this whole project. Yeah. You know, I said it earlier, if you're at that point where you can afford to hire an architect and build a house of your own, you should have it custom to yourself.